and welcome to the Slow Crafting Podcast. My name's Nadine and I'm coming to you today from the northwest of England near Manchester. It's been a long time. I think between school holidays, a broken laptop, which was a major problem, bubble closures again, and getting a new puppy. It's all who you might be able to hear in the background. It's all been a bit chaotic here, but I'm back. I've got a video for today and I've got some bits and bobs to show you. Now it's mostly going to be about mending, because I had a big mending pile to take care of, but I will briefly mention what I'm wearing. This is my second version of the ranunculus sweater by Midori. It's gone. I will put it on the screen below. So this was just made with some random commercial sock yarn that I had. So all the patterning around the top is lost, but it's just a nice, lightweight, loose fitting jumper, because the weather is lovely and warm today, hence the sunshine glaring in, but also can be a little bit breezy, so I just wanted my arms covered. And I knitted this in about a week. It's such a fast jumper to knit, because it is so cropped. I mean, I don't know if you're going to be able to see. Comes sort of halfway between my boobs and my tummy button, and I didn't have enough yarn to do the long sleeves, so we've got sleeves as long as they go. But yes. So that's what I'm wearing. Incidentally, the dress that I have on, I have had for probably about 15 years. I lost a lot of weight quite a few years ago, and I gave lots of my clothes that no longer fitted to my mum, and she's just been hoarding them for the last 15 years or 12 years or whatever. And when I went to see her a couple of months ago, she gave me a big bag of clothes back. I went, there you go, you can have these back. And surprisingly they fit. Well, some of them fit, some of them are too small. So yes, it was like having a whole new wardrobe all over again, with clothes that were, well, I don't think she wore them, I think she just kept them in a cupboard, so they're not technically third hand, but almost second hand clothes. Right, I'll insert some videos here of the mending process, and then I'll come back at the end to talk about the projects once I'd finished mending them. Okay, speak to you soon. This monstrosity here is my current mending pile, or to be mended pile. I have been saving it up for a couple of months because I tend to do it in batches, which probably isn't the best of ideas, given that if I wait too long, my girls will have grown out of the stuff that is on their mending pile, because they grow so fast. But I just need to work out what type of mending each thing needs, and sort them out into piles, and then make a start on it. Right, I think I'm about sorted. So at the far left, we've got non-clothing items that need mending. Next to that, we've got items that need alteration or modification in some way. So it might be resizing, it might be adding pockets, or it might be more complex mends and makes. Then we've got things that need patching. That's mostly leggings, but there's also a coat and a dress and some pajamas in there. Then we've got knitwear that needs either darning or drop stitches picking up. Then we've got things that have got split seams, and lastly we've got a pile of things that didn't actually need mending, but for some reason we're on the mending pile, so they can go back into the rotation now. But yeah, that's quite a lot. I think it's going to take me some time. Right, I'm going to start with the pile that needs patching, so not that pile. And I've got a selection of fabrics here, sort of leftovers from previous projects. because I'm going to try and match the patch with the fabric, at least type of fabric that the original item's made out of. So I've got the jersey for the leggings and the t-shirts, I've got the brushed cotton for the pyjamas, and then I've got the normal cotton, but this one's tie-dyed, to go with the cotton tunic. The only thing I can't match is the coat, because I haven't got any fabric like this, but I'm just going to do my best with what I've got, and hopefully some of this might work, because it's on the back under the collar. And we'll see how I get on. Right, we'll start with the knitwear repairs. So this is a jumper that I've had since I was small enough to fit in it. Me and two of my brothers all had matching jumpers that my mum had made, but after my girls had been wearing it, it had ended up with a hole in the sleeve here. So I found some thread that sort of roughly colour matches, and I've just, because I obviously didn't have the yarn or anything similar, and it's not invisible by any stretch of the imagination, but the hole is repaired and it's secure, and it will live to fight another day. So that's knitted mend number 1. This is a shop bought jumper, which had lots, it's chenille type wool, but it had lots and lots of pulls all over it from going through the washing machine. So I just sat with a crochet hook and pulled all the pulls back, threaded them back through to the other side of the jumper. So it's a temporary bodge rather than an actual fix, but it means the jumper's now wearable again, so that's good. Number 3 on the knitted men's. This is jumper that I've had for about 18 months. I had noticed at the back there was a couple of drop stitches that had run all the way down to here, so again I went in with a crochet hook and picked them up, picked up the stitches, trying to keep the pattern correct on the back. I didn't quite manage it at the top, and then I put a few stitches in to reattach the wool at the top so it won't unravel again. So that was mend number 3. Now I did spend 3 whole days working on the mending pile, which was very, I'm talking solid sit down as soon as I'd finished my breakfast, working all the way through the day, probably doing a bit at night time as well. Yeah, 3 days. It's not the fastest of activities, but it is worth it in the end. Now, this is a jumper that my mother-in-law had given to me and my other half, thinking one of us might wear it. He was a bit, she picked it up in a charity shop. He was a bit iffy about it, but I thought, now we've got the dog, I'll need dog walking jumpers. So I said I'd have it, but it needed pockets for random treats or keys or whatever. So I crocheted a couple of squares in some cotton yarn, and it's now got pockets, and it's a much more usable, wearable dog walking jumper. So that's that. A lot of the repairs that I was doing was basic patching, particularly of the children's clothes, because they had leggings that had holes in the knees and what have you. So I have a whole series of tiny patches. So I just found some scraps of jersey fabric that I had in stash, and used an embroidery thread, just did a buttonhole stitch around the edge to attach it, and I've done that on the leggings and things for quite a long time, and they seem to hold up quite well. Sometimes I embellish them and put sequins and things on, but other times they just stay like that. So just a random diamond on the bum for that one, although I have now noticed I have missed a hole repair on this one, so that will have to go back on the mending pile for another patch. It is never ending. She had a vest that needed a patch on it, Also needs ironing now. Now this one, I'm not sure how successful this one will be because it was a gusset patch, so I don't know how comfortable it will be or how odd looking it will sit. So once I give her these back, I will see how I get on with those. But yeah, they had the hole in the gusset, so it had gone round the seams, so I couldn't just seam it together or refasten the seams, so I had to do the patch. And then this one is a t-shirt that had a hole in the bottom. I think she claims it was accidental, but I don't know if she'd cut it or chewed it or something, but it had holes in down here. And I tried to make the patch slightly butterfly shaped, not particularly successfully, I must admit, but thought it would tie in better with the things that were on a t-shirt. So that's that one. Most of those leggings and t-shirts and things were at least second hand because they've come from the cousins and they've now been patched and repaired and will live a bit longer. Overall, my biggest patch is this one on my pajamas. So I had some flannelette type fabric because that's what my pajama bottoms are made of, but I'd already repaired these ones because I'd got a rip on the bum, but then I'd also managed to pop the seam open on these as well. So the original patch that I'd done was failing, partly because of how I'd done it, but I thought, right, we'll just have one ginormous patch. I don't mind having a giant patch of unicorns on my bottom, but yeah, so it's quite a big patch and it covers both repairs rather than having two separate patches. Thought it might reinforce the bum area a bit as well, so I'm less likely to need to repair it again. And that unicorn fabric is leftover scraps from when I made a PE bag and a nightie for my youngest daughter. Right, some basic seam repairs. On this shirt, just under the armpit, the seam had popped open, so I just re-seamed that. As far as I can remember, it was the seam itself that had come unstitched. It wasn't that it had ripped along a seam, so that was quite a straightforward mend. I just sewed it up on the inside in bright pink thread because it didn't really matter what colour I used for that. It was quite a lot of options for sewing it back together. This one was another seam repair. Well, it was repairing the restitching the handle. Don't know if it was, yeah, so I did it in pink rather than yellow because I didn't have any lemon yellow, and the pink matched the outside. As it's a little handbag that was made by one of my mum's friends for one of my girls. I've repaired the other one as well. The other one, the handle stitches came undone, so I don't know, I think it must have been particularly weak fastening on it, but now she can have that back and swan around putting things in her handbag and pretending she's a grown up, which is what she likes to do. Now these next repairs might not float everybody's boat. They were inner thigh repairs of some leggings and some joggers. Now this one I did with fabric that's black fabric on the inside, so from the outside you can't really see it, it's not that noticeable because there was only a couple of small holes as well, but the seam had gone, well, it wasn't the seam, it was the fabric next to the seam. So I've reinforced it and then I've stitched over the top of it don't know if you're going to be able to see that, just a series of running stitches all in one direction across it. I mean, these are only scruffy clothes anyway, so they don't need to look pristine and businesslike for work or anything. They're just my gardening trousers and everyday scrabbling about after the children clothes. But I used the same colour thread as the fabric. The fabric that I patched them with, I had some pants that the waistband had come detached from, and I was going to repair the waistband, but it would have looked ugly and been a more complicated process. So I chopped the pants up, or like chopped them up along all the seams and put them into constituent parts. So it's a pair of pants, or a bit of a pair of pants that I've used to reinforce the inside of these trousers. But if you're into fast fashion, you probably want to try taking apart a pair of cheap knickers, just bog standard knickers, and seeing just how many seams have been sewn on those pants, and then they might make you question why they're only like £1.50 or something, because there is an awful lot of work that goes into, and pieces that goes into making just a standard pair of pants. And then I also replaced the drawstring on these. It had been like a ribbony type one that had frayed, and I replaced it with some Kumihimo braid that oh no, it wasn't. I made it on my lucette, so it looks very much like a Kumihimo braid, but instead of being round, it's square. And I just made it with some scrap sock yarn, so it can go through the wash and it's fine. And it's jazzy. I made it a bit longer than I probably should have done. It won't be that long because obviously my waist is not that small, but if it's too obvious and dangly, I can tuck it back inside. But yeah, replace the band, patch the thigh. Now, these are probably what was going to push some people over the edge, because I've got several pairs of leggings, and they all go on the inner thighs. So this one I've repaired previously on the inner thigh, and I've just restitched the seam. Now this pair, the stitches I'd previously done had held, but then the fabric next to the stitches had ripped. So I decided I'd do the same reinforcement and series of running stitches. However, I did them very visibly, so contrasting fabric, contrasting thread, and we'll see how I get on. Because I've got quite meaty thighs, I do get a lot of chub rub, so having reinforced fabric on my inner thigh area is always a good idea. So that was the one pair, and then this was the second pair, and we'll see how they hold up over time. I think all my pairs of leggings I've repaired 2 or 3 times, because they've got holes in, or rips, or pop seams, or what have you, but I definitely needed to make an effort to mend these, because these were my thicker ones. At the moment I'm relegated to wearing my very thin, almost see-through ones, so they can go back in circulation. Speaking of circulation, I did also repair some of my partner's trousers, work trousers, like combat pants, but as soon as I'd mended them, he took them back away, and they went back into his wardrobe and to be worn. But the repair on them was one of the side pockets. The stitching had come undone down the side of the pocket, so it was just basically open. So I just restitched it and redid the seam on there. Right, now these are bits that the girls had grown out of, but because they had bits that needed repairing, I couldn't send them to the charity shop, because I knew if I sent them to the charity shop, then they would end up in the like rag pile, because they wouldn't be able to sell them on. So this one, the pocket had come unstitched down one side, so it was flapping open. So I basically just restitched the pocket and reattached it, and it's good as new now. It smells quite nice actually. So that can now go to the charity shop as mended and suitable for resale. Now this one was like just a little plain out coat for the girls. I don't know if I'll charity shop this one. I'll give it to my nieces, because it's, I don't know how well it would sell in a charity shop, because it is a plain out coat. It's not like a dressy coat, so it might be better off going to my nieces. But it had a hole in the collar here, so I've just patched it with a scrap of contrasting fabric. But it looks like it's meant to be there, because you know there's some coats that have the reflective diamond on the back somewhere, and it just looked in keeping with it. So that's now mended, and either I can charity shop it or pass it on to family members who will get more use out of it, because it was passed on to us from cousins, so that's useful. Now the next two were slightly more involved remakes and repairs, because this is my daughter's nightie that I made for her a couple of Christmases ago, but she grew out of it. Well, she didn't. The body still fits, because she's a petite little thing, but it was basically just underneath her bum. It was far too short. So she picked some fabric, and we added on a ruffle at the bottom, so it's made it much longer. And it also means she now has some fabric which is the same as her sister's nightie, because her sister's got a fabric nightie in this fabric, and I've got a dress that's lined, well, a reversible dress that's got this fabric on one side, so we can all match and be adorable. But no, she decided, rather than just having a straight lengthening section, she wanted a big fluffy ruffly one. And this, it's not that ruffly actually, it's twice the original length of the hem on the shorter bit. So I had to unpick the hem on here and obviously cut this and gather it and then reattach it and then hem this bit. So yeah, so she can wear that again, and hopefully she should like that. Although for future nighties, I need to remember to put the buttons and things on the front, because if they have them on the back, the hair gets caught in them, and yes, this has got lots of hair caught around the button where I've had to cut it off when they've got trapped in the nightie. But yeah, this fabric that she picked was, because I did give the option of lengthening it in this fabric, but no, she wanted a contrast, and this was from a duvet cover that was from a charity shop. So that's that. And then the final piece is my dress that has been waiting to be mended for a very long time. Now, I originally made this dress, it's from a Japanese pattern book. If I can remember what it is, I'll put it here. But I used the lining of some old curtains from the 70s. Now, because it was a plain white cotton, and I dyed it and did the like tie-dye stuff on it myself, but because it was the lining of some curtains, it'd obviously been in direct sunlight for quite a long time, so the fabric itself was quite weak in places, and it easily ripped or was more fragile, so I've had to do a selection of random crazy patches. So I've reinforced the top corners of the pockets, and I did that in some tie-dyed fabric that I tie-dyed myself, because they're only patch pockets. They were beginning to rip at the corner patches, so I've tried to keep the stitching so to match the seam treatment on this, so it's all herringbone stitch to attach the patches. So I've got that on both patch pockets, and then at the bottom of these pin tucks, some of them were starting to rip, so I attached the patches there at different heights just for a bit of variation, and then there was a couple of holes here. I think at the end of this bust dart, the stitching the fabric had ripped at the stitching there, and there was a little hole there as well. I don't know how long this dress in itself will last, because like I said, the fabric itself was not the most long lasting because of the direct exposure to sunlight for a long time, but we'll see how it goes. But I can now wear this again, so I'm very, very excited. It'll be a welcome addition to my wardrobe if the weather stays nice and warm like this. So I'll try and stand up and show you it from a distance, because you're just getting little patchy bits. So yeah, I think if it had been a plain dress, I wouldn't have done such random patching, but because it's tie-dyed and you've got sort of a white section on the back as well, I thought it sort of blended in slightly better. We'll see if we'll get any random comments when I'm out in the street wearing it, but even if I do, it doesn't matter. Right, I think that's it. Otherwise this video is going to be really quite long. Please excuse a random star in the background. My other half made it as a Christmas decoration for the front of the house, only they couldn't possibly store it in the garage when it wasn't attached to the front of the house, because that was just too much clutter. So it's now in the conservatory along with all the rest of the clutter that you could probably see glimpses of behind me as I moved. But yes, I'm not recreating some kind of Blair Witch project in my conservatory. It's a Christmas decoration. Right, I do have some upcoming design news. I'm working with a dyer, an indie dyer, to produce a new design that should hopefully be coming out at the beginning of September, fingers crossed. But I'll give you some sneak peeks of that in future episodes or across on my Instagram. But yes, I shall keep you posted, and hopefully it won't be so long next time. Speak to you soon. Happy crafting. Bye.